people get pitched all the time from all different marketing companies like myself. And, usually the bigger the budget, the more everybody makes. But really at the end of the day, you don't need to spend a lot of money out of the gate if you set it up right to get the data that you need to make these decisions. And so that's one of the things that I like to tell people is that when you start out conservative with your budget, protect it. Make sure that you're seeing those things that you just talked about, that these audiences they're aligned, they're performing, they're not performing, but don't spend thousands of dollars out of the gate because you're excited. Make sure that you're seeing all of these data points that are going to help you build a successful campaign. And then when it's working, then you can adjust your budget up and you're going to make money down the road, or, at least you're going to get return on your marketing spend. If you're a nonprofit, maybe you're not there to make money, but you're going to get the results that you want.
Are you looking for ways to shorten your marketing learning curve and help your organization survive and thrive? Welcome to Relish This, the Purpose Marketing Podcast, a show for purpose-focused leaders who want to use marketing techniques to fuel their organization's growth. If you're a returning listener and you haven't subscribed already, we'd love to have you. Also, please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Now here's your host, author and marketing specialist, Stu Swineford.
Hey everybody, Stu here. My guest today is Kurt Filla, and he is an SEM pay-per-click ad guy that you are going to love. He does a lot of work in the nonprofit space. He just is a data genius. He really has a lot of fantastic things to say here today if you are looking to do some paid advertising. So whether that be on Google or social or display ads, Kurt is your guy. We talk a lot about Google Grants. We talk about optimizing your campaigns so that you get good conversions and good strategies to take when starting off with a campaign. So I think you're going to love this show. I had a blast talking with Kurt. Here we go. Kurt, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I'm really excited to learn more about SEM. And where are you calling in from?
Yeah, so I am in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay, fantastic. I've never visited Michigan. It seems like there are some really fun places to go, particularly up in the Upper Peninsula. I have a few friends who tend to go up there in the summer and really seem to enjoy it.
Michigan is really, really great. We love raising our family here. Grand Rapids, Beer City. There's many reasons to come with all the breweries around here, but it's a great place. We love it.
That's great. It sounds like it might be a sister city to Denver, and we have our fair share of breweries out here as well.
Yeah.
Well, it is actually snowing here today. We're recording here in kind of mid-October, but this will drop here after the start of the year. But yeah, we finally got some measurable snow on the ground today, which is good to see because we could certainly use the moisture.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I've been trying to kind of crack the nut for nonprofits on this whole SEM and paid search endeavor. And it's really cool to have you on as an expert in that field. I know that you do a ton of work in the nonprofit space, and I'm really excited to learn more. How did you get into doing search for nonprofits?
Yeah, so my background was 20 years here in Grand Rapids. I was part of a company that I helped build, develop, grow. The CEO at our company was one of my best friends, and we did digital marketing through search, through social, through a lot of display advertising. Actually, that's kind of where we got started, was more the ad space with ads on websites. We even were part of like the pop-up phase when that was vibrant. But anyway, we did search for the last several years that I was there. And then I went out on my own 2.5 years ago now, started my own business, and really tried to focus on smaller businesses, nonprofits. I do a lot of work with pregnancy centers, schools, churches, things like that. A lot of my experience was really in the EDU space or higher education. I did a lot of lead development and lead marketing for education clients and universities. So that's really what the core of my background was. We did, multi-channel. We did all kinds of digital media, but that's really the bulk of what I did. So I love search, and it's really one of those things where you just get immediate results, you get immediate feedback, and it's really exciting because you put it live, and even if it's bad, it's immediate, right? And you can make changes pretty quickly, and I like to be on top of that.
Yeah, when our clients ask us about search versus SEO, I kind of try and give them the analogy that SEO is like a dimmer switch where it kind of comes on slowly and it can degrade slowly. But search is one of those things that's more like a light switch where you can turn it on and off. And if you have your systems in place and you know that your conversion rates are appropriate, you can really just kind of flip that switch on when you need it. And, if you're flush and you don't need leads at this point in time, that you can just kind of turn that off and on when needed.
Exactly. And I think that the biggest thing as you talk to nonprofits and talk to people, a lot of people don't understand that when you turn the light switch on, that you really need to have everything ready to fire. And that's one of the things that I talk to people a lot about. Like, make sure that your reporting's intact, that your objectives are well defined. Are you looking for clicks to your website? Are you looking for calls or leads, even sales or event registration? What is that objective? That really needs to be defined up front. And then if you can define that, then you need to measure it by placing tracking pixels and connecting all of the different platforms that you're working with, whether it's analytics and then AdWords and Google Tag Manager, and making them all talk to each other so that when you turn the light switch on, you don't lose any valuable marketing budget or time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you get those analytics and then you know where to make adjustments and measure against past performance so that you can really get a better feel for what's happening, right?
Right. And a lot of people just sometimes miss the mark and turn that light on too quickly and want to, put the gas pedal on and move forward. And if that's all not lined up, you're just going to lose marketing budget and you're going to lose time and energy, really.
So do you recommend people set up landing pages? Is that typically your go-to mechanism for kind of the first step, and then have some kind of a funnel in place behind that, or some sort of drip campaign? Or
that is a great question. So there's a couple different ways to slice and dice it. I mean, again, back to the objective, I always ask people, what is your objective? And let's say, for example, it's, we want to get leads with name and an email and maybe a phone number so that we can follow up with them for whatever event or marketing thing that they're going to do down the road. So then you just want to look at the website to make sure that that objective is aligned on the website. So sometimes you need to create a new landing page that really kind of markets that specific objective. But a lot of times people have a website that's pretty well done and has that information. There's a place where they can go to capture the data that they want. And we can just use that. So it's really just making sure that the site is ready for the marketing objective. And sometimes you need a landing page, and sometimes there's content there that you can use immediately. I like to try to save people money. And if you don't need to create a new landing page and spend money on that, we can use your website to do that. But whatever you do, you want to make sure that the marketing messaging matches the content that you're ending up sending the user to. So as long as there's a match there, you're ready to go.
Yeah, that's one of the disconnects that we've seen people do, is either just sending directly to the homepage where there's not a strong match from the ad ask to what's being delivered there on the site, or you're just trying to kind of forcing people to hunt and peck in terms of getting to the thing that they might have been interested in based upon the ad that you ran. So it's, paramount that you get those things aligned. Are those some of the most common mistakes that you see with people kind of turning on a paid search campaign?
Yeah, for sure. So you just touched on that disconnect between the content and the ad, and that the little known secret in SEM is that you really, really need to get that quality score that Google gives you up as high as possible, because that reduces your cost per click. And the lower your cost per click is, the more traffic you're going to get. So if you have a good match with the ad content and the landing page and the keywords that you are using, that really increases your quality score, and Google favors that. So that's just one area that, people need to jump on. The other thing that you brought up, or that sparked my interest, is that if you make people hunt and peck for things, that really decreases your conversion rate. So if you can create little things on your website to enhance continuity of the user experience. So if there's a call button or maybe an email button that stays always at the top of your page, no matter where you go, so that if people go 3 or 4 pages deep and they're like, yeah, this is the company I want to work with, or I want to get connected, they don't have to then go back 2 or 3 pages or find the contact and click there and scroll down. they have an immediate call to action that's just right there on their screen and they can click on and convert. So little tweaks like that you can make to your website increase your conversion rates substantially. So
yeah, there are a variety of different ways to do that. And we also find that just repeating the call to action along the page tends to help as well. But yeah, having a sticky nav or a sticky header can facilitate that. Or sometimes you'll see them kind of, I guess, stick on the sides of the page too. So there are a number of ways that people can handle that from a technology standpoint. But yeah, those are great ideas. What are some other ways to either improve the quality score or enable conversion improvements?
Yeah, so once you get the conversion data points connected and you're actually tracking the objective correctly, you can really use the Google platform to optimize towards that really aggressively. They have so many different, I guess, targeting variables and adjustments that you can make. So, one example, a lot of people might not consider their audience targeting from a geographical perspective accurately. You really need to say, like, how far out is my reach? Is it 60 miles? Is it the whole state? Am I targeting all of US? So, for example, if somebody's targeting all of the US, they might quickly just enable that. But you can actually go in and target all 50 states or all of the major metropolitans. And as you add all of those layers and include the United States, you can then see different performance differentials from New York City to Los Angeles to Dallas to St. Louis. And each one of those is going to convert differently. And then you have kind of a bucket to adjust, either high or low, or turn on or off. And if you just kind of target broad and leave it broad, you limit yourself on how much you can really do to hone in on where the conversions are. But you need that tracking up front in order to be able to make those decisions long term.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we've seen work really well in Facebook advertising is just getting your ad kind of to good enough and then casting a really wide net and on a fairly small spend and leveraging the data that you actually get from that spend to say, okay, well, here are the demographics that actually really liked that ad. And so you can run that same ad to those demographics, get more specific where you're spending a lot more per click because they tend to charge you more when you get more specific, right? And then create another ad and throw it back out there. And basically you're just creating the right ad for the right people and then spreading that to those people more specifically on a more expensive spend.
I like what you said about just not spending a lot of money to do that, because I think that is another misconception that people have. People get pitched all the time from all different marketing companies like myself. And, usually the bigger the budget, the more everybody makes. But really at the end of the day, you don't need to spend a lot of money out of the gate if you set it up right to get the data that you need to make these decisions. And so that's one of the things that I like to tell people is that when you start out conservative with your budget, protect it, make sure that you're seeing those things that you just talked about, that these audiences they're aligned, they're performing, they're not performing, but don't spend thousands of dollars out of the gate because you're excited. Make sure that you're seeing all of these data points that are going to help you build a successful campaign. And then when it's working, then you can adjust your budget up and you're going to make money down the road, or, at least you're going to get return on your marketing spend. If you're a nonprofit, maybe you're not there to make money, but you're going to get the results that you want.
Yeah, for sure. Does that improve your quality score as well? If Google sees that you're performing really well, does your cost per click come down?
If you have a really good click-through rate on your ad, that helps your quality score. But I don't think that the conversion rate or the conversion metrics kind of layer into that. I think it's more click-through rate.
Gotcha. Interesting. Cool. What are some recommendations that you would have without getting clickbaity on how nonprofits have succeeded with getting a good click-through rate on their ads?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to segment your creatives or your kind of marketing strategy into themes so that when you are creating ads that they are in parallel to the target. So if you're a school and you're targeting it to an area, let's say you're a school in Memphis and you're trying to market your, sports program, making ads that are very thematic around the location and around the theme of the ad and having that all match is just really important for the quality score. And then you can also do different variations with that. There's two different types of ads. There's just the static where it's, just 3 headlines and 4 descriptions, but they also have responsive ads where you can put up to 15 different headlines and just really focus on variations on the theme. And then through the data, you can see which one comes up and performs better and then build off of that as well. So it's really grouping them together thematically and making sure it all matches, because that's going to improve you. Google really focuses on, they want the ads and the user experience to be extremely relevant to the user searching. So that if you're relevant and they click on it and they have a great experience, Google measures all of that in their mystery box.
Yeah.
And that's what really determines the quality score.
Yeah. So I imagine that Google's looking at bounce rates and time on site and things of that nature once people have clicked through and are using that as part of their algorithm for whether or not to show the ad, et cetera.
And definitely the speed of the website is really important. If it's just a slow experience, Google measures that. They really want you to have unique content, something that's authoritative, something that is informational, easy to read, easy to digest. They really scan the landing pages like crazy to make sure that they're matching what you're doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. We get that question a lot in terms of people just wondering how the algorithm works. And it's like, well, we have some guesses, but no one really knows for sure.
It keeps you busy trying to, strategize on that.
So what kind of messaging? I know that you do a lot of work in kind of the messaging component of this.
Right.
What do you recommend for that in that perspective in terms of people when they're creating their ads?
Yeah, basically what sets you apart. I mean, you really need to focus on who are you? I mean, what's your identity? What is your core value proposition? I don't always think it needs to be super fancy and super in-depth. I mean, it's sometimes simple and straightforward and concise is really good and works for us. A simple call to action within the ad, contact us now, easy online appointment, or visit us. Here's our location. Just really get to the point very quickly and present your core value proposition. Who are you and how are you different? What are you trying to bring to the community or to your audience that's unique and that would be helpful to them?
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that there's some really interesting things in the nonprofit space in terms of getting people to take an action. And it's that challenge, particularly when you start looking at donations or even volunteering time. You don't typically have people waking up in the morning and wondering how they're going to give away some of their money today. And so there's that friction that occurs kind of throughout that process.
Yep. And sometimes you can do some targeting with your competitors in the space as well. So while you can't use like their trademark in the headlines, you can use your competitors in the keywords. So if you know that somebody similar in the area you're kind of competing with for eyeballs and views and even donations, you can target them so that your ad comes up, when they're searching for someone like you or similar to you. So that's a little strategy to help on the donation side. But I do want to say one thing that while we're talking here is that when it comes to SEM and nonprofits, sometimes SEM isn't the right answer, right? I think that when you're thinking about your marketing budget and your marketing objectives, sometimes SEM is always that, top of mind. They're searching. The intent is very high. They're looking right now for something very specific. And if that's not where you are in relationship to your, potential user, SEM just might not be the right answer. You might be more of a social play, or even like you were talking about SEO. So you want to be mindful of what your objective is and how are people looking for you and what format. I've just tried to put together some nonprofits with SEM and it just wasn't the best fit. I mean, social was a better fit. So you also want to think about that when you consider SEM, that it's not always the right answer for all clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting how everything kind of plays together. And having a multi-pronged approach can be really helpful. But yeah, it may be that even with with some of the new opportunities out there in SEM, it might not be the right play for a lot of nonprofits. What should people do to investigate to figure out if SEM's right for them, do you think?
Yeah. So people that have, you don't even need like a huge budget, but if you are looking at the various formats, to reach out to your audience when you're thinking of social, search, display, SEO as well, I always tell people to start out with a few of those platforms combined and make sure that your reporting is distinct so you can see the performance on each platform or each venue. So that way, and one of the services we offer is that when we do that, we're looking proactively at the performance on each channel to make sure that we can adjust budgets, or recommend changes based on individual channel performances. So it's good to test if you're able to. And like we were talking about earlier, you really don't need huge budgets to do that. You can test, with a few $100s a month, really, in some of these platforms and still get some data that's meaningful, as long as the conversions are being tracked properly. And I do want to say one other thing too. One other thing that's helpful for tracking is not just tracking your core objectives. So I was talking about earlier that is it most important to you to get a lead or a phone call or just traffic to your site or like an event registration? Those are all important and you definitely want to track those. But you can track, like in Google Analytics, up to 20 different goals and then import those into AdWords. So you can track people that look at 2 pages or 3 pages or 4 pages. You can just track people that click on a learn more button or navigate to your contact page without actually clicking on contact. So each one of those kind of variables or actions on your website can all funnel back into conversion or post-click data that informs your media buy on what's working or what's not. So getting more granular is another kind of best practice so that you don't have to spend so much money, because really at the end of the day, the call or the lead is really the most expensive to get because there's fewer of them. But people are going to search around on your website and click a little bit before they actually do that. And those early indicators of activity can help then just educate you on which audience or which ad or which keyword is really providing you the lift that you want.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of the different programs, you can actually retarget to people based on behavior. So essentially, if somebody did click a button, but then didn't fill out a form, or went to your contact page, but didn't fill anything out, or visited a second page, that if you have tracking on it, you can actually vend a different ad to them that's very targeted to that material that they maybe went to.
Yep. And yeah, super great. We love retargeting. Retargeting works almost in all cases across all platforms. The only downside is that some nonprofits, if you're related to a church or some sort of religious organization, Google doesn't actually let you retarget.
Interesting.
To anything that is a religious nature. So one of the campaigns, I probably shouldn't go there. That would be confidential. But we worked with a very well-known Catholic organization, and yeah, they weren't allowed to retarget. So
interesting. Well, certainly that's where hiring an expert would be handy, so that they might be able to help you out.
There are ways around that. So one of the ways around that, and this is valid, it's no secret, but if you have a user list, you can upload that list and you can target a list, and you can also create lookalikes. So if you know, like, hey, we have 5,000 users. These are people, of a certain income in a certain zip code or area. They have these type of interests. These are our people, right?
Yeah.
You can upload that list and then create what's called a lookalike campaign. So you can target people that are similar to the list that you already have. The only problem with SEM is that they still have to be searching for your keywords. So if you limit your audience to these like sort of micro audiences, sometimes it gets hard to spend that budget. And that strategy might work better like on a social campaign, but it's still something you can use and it is helpful.
Can you do lookalikes on Google as well, or is that just kind of a Facebook play?
Yeah, you can do lookalikes on AdWords.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. That's an interesting play. So tell us a little bit more about what people would need to put together if they For example, it seems like if you had a donor list, that would be something that you could leverage to start building a lookalike. Is that correct?
Yeah, just a donor list. Yeah, any email list. Usually you need 1,000 people in your audience or more. And then, yeah, you can target that.
And essentially they look at that email list, pull demographics and habits and likes and things of that nature, and then vet an ad to people who have similar demographic and interests, et cetera.
We can only speculate how Google does that, right? But
right. Exactly. But that's the idea, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting. So people with a larger donor list, there's certainly an opportunity there to leverage the data associated with that.
Absolutely.
Do they need to have personal email addresses, or will business email addresses work as well?
Any email addresses work. I'm sure if there's a business, I don't actually know how that works to identify who the user would be if it's a business email, but as long as your email is identified to a person and a gender and an age, and usually when they're logged into their Gmail, it connects and you have a cookie on your site and your computer and it identifies you, so I'm not exactly sure how all that works, but yeah, if you upload that list, then you can use that. I really think that it's more effective on the display media side as well as social media, display specifically, because there's so much inventory in display marketing. It's really great to narrow in on an audience because it's hard to narrow in on content. So it's really good for display. It's just a little harder on search because it limits, you're already intent based. So people are searching for your keywords. And if they're not long tail keywords and they're really relevant to what you're offering, you kind of don't want to miss people.
Right.
But if you're struggling to get a good return on, your ad spend and get a performance that you're really happy with, that is a good way to limit your budget.
That's a really interesting play. So tell the audience a little bit more about display ads versus other types of advertising.
Yeah, for sure. So display ads, and Google offers it. There's other platforms that I use, AppNexus, Xander. Basically, when you have all these websites out there, there's a lot of unsold inventory. They put them into AdWords and, they're going out there and getting direct buys with people, but they don't sell out all their inventory. So really 95 or 6% of the internet space is available to you in AdWords in their display campaigns. So you can basically upload image ads and get those launched on websites out there. And then Google will report to you on what websites you served on and what the performance is on each individual website. You can create whitelists and target individual sites that you like, that you see where performance is good, or you can just keep it open and do this audience targeting that I was talking about and lookalike audiences and things like that. So,
are there any trends in display ads that you've seen are working better than others if people want to do a display ad campaign?
I think it's all about data. When it comes to trends, there's always like new creatives and imagery and, new technology out there, but it really comes back to making sure that the data is just as robust as possible. Display was the core of what I did for my 20-year career in digital media. And I can just say on the downside, it's the Wild West. There's just so much inventory. And if you put app traffic in there as well, it gets just really noisy and overwhelming. And sometimes the performance can be that good performance can be hard to find. So really it's all about data and making sure that data is just fully locked in and integrated so that when you start doing a display campaign, you're really honing in immediately on what's working. The other thing that's really important is rate. And I would tell this to any nonprofit when you're talking to people and you're doing them a budget. A lot of times, especially on display, I've just seen that the CPM or cost per 1,000 impressions has just been really high in the marketing space. And you really don't need to spend a lot of money when it comes to the rate to be able to get traffic. In fact, I've proven on most campaigns that I've worked on that you can get by with almost a tenth of the rate on what is generally being pitched out there. So
interesting.
Be very careful with the rate. You just normally don't need to spend a ton on a CPM basis.
That's a great segue. What do you recommend people start with in terms of budgeting to just dip their toes in the water and to really start to get data? Obviously, it depends on what the cost per click is, but do you typically recommend people start with $100 ad spend plus whatever management fee associated with that? Or do people need to budget closer to 1,000?
Yeah, 100 is a little bit low. So I usually use like the $10 a day minimum.
Okay.
It's hard because if you're a legal company and you're targeting a keyword that really, has a lot of competition, your cost per click is going to be $30,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So a $10 a day budget will get you like 5 impressions and 1 click every 3 days. But, a lot of campaigns are $1, $2, $3, $4 a click. So you can get 2 to 5 clicks a day at $10 a day budget. What I normally say to answer that question is, what are you willing to risk or lose? Like, if you knew that in testing you would lose 100% of your budget, what are you willing to risk the first few months, and start there because, it is risky. Anytime you put a marketing campaign up, there's just that element of risk and there's no guarantee on a return on your investment or the effectiveness of your ads. There's just too many variables. So when you first launch out, just what are you willing to risk to learn? I try to get results as quick as possible, but it gives people sort of a sense that, all right, I understand that results aren't going to be immediate. I need to be patient. And this is the amount of budget I can be patient with to start the campaign out and see where we're at.
Right.
On the low end, if you have no budget at all type of company and you're struggling as a nonprofit, $250 to $500 a month would be a good starting point. If you're more moderate and you have a larger marketing budget with a clear objective, that $1,000 plus mark is a good starting point.
That's really great to know. Yeah, it's funny out there. The other thing that I think people should consider is having at least a portion of your goal be to get information. And that can be a little bit of a mindset change. But if you're really trying to drive donations, but go into it with the attitude that this is an investment that you're going to get something out of regardless. And, that's something maybe that your ad is not functional and that, no one is interested in that particular messaging, but at least you were able to test something and that didn't work. And so coming at it from that kind of mindset perspective, I think is a really good way to approach really any marketing campaign, is that it's not a cost, it's an investment.
Yeah. And all of our failures we learn from. Like you said, if the campaign wasn't successful, usually you can see, hey, our price was just way too low. It didn't penetrate. There wasn't enough inventory on the keywords that we put in there, or our landing page just fell flat. After they clicked, they did nothing. So that can educate you that, they got to your landing page and did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
How can we fix that? What are some options? Can we just, even the color, the color schemes of your landing page, just shifting from a green to a blue or from a red to a yellow. I mean, they make a huge difference in how users respond, their emotional state, their feeling, their sense of trust. When they're on your page, do they feel welcomed? And is this a place that seems vibrant and alive? And yeah, I want to be a part of that. Or is it just really cold and sterile and just not impressive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we were introduced from Tim Kacheriak over at Next After, correct?
You and I?
Yeah.
No, I think we were introduced from Instant Nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, from Christian Lafleur. Yeah, so he was on the show quite a while ago as well. And he and his team do great work in terms of helping people set up their nonprofit from the get-go. But I mentioned Tim Kacheriak, who was on the show. He has a really interesting business called Next After that does just a ton of analytics and research on what works and what doesn't in terms of setting up landing pages and running campaigns and things of that nature. And so when you were speaking just a minute ago, I thought, oh, this sounds exactly like what Tim would say, is that every campaign has some kind of value, even if it didn't provide the results that you were really looking for. There's opportunity there.
Yeah. And never to be emotionally attached to sort of like the content and the messaging, because the smallest tweaks can just make huge differences. And you go in with one assumption and you come out with a different result. And, as long as you're not attached to all of that and you're really flexible, you can do a lot with just small changes and tweaks.
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned landing pages a minute ago, and we've talked about them a bit throughout our conversation today. What are some of the tweaks that you've seen work really well on landing pages for your clients?
Yeah, positioning of your call to action is probably the most important thing. Like a lot of people will put the form if you're interested in us, please give us your name, email, and phone number and submit. A lot of times people instinctively put that at the bottom of their page, but if you put it at the top of your page, especially on mobile, when somebody clicks on the ad, they see that form right away and they're able to just convert. So positioning of your call to action, especially a lead form towards the top of the page, is really important. A lot of times you have to think about it. If you do a really, really good ad, you have 2 to 3 headlines, you have 2 descriptions that each have 90 characters. And if you get all that information in the ad and people are searching with high intent for what you're offering, that ad alone might be enough for them to be ready to convert. So you have to be ready for that user who has high intent and high eagerness to convert, and they get to your landing page and that form is right there up top without scrolling. Boom, that conversion is yours.
Yeah.
Every time you force a user to touch their phone, to scroll, to click, to move, that decreases your conversion rate because, I mean, let's face it, we're all lazy, right? We want to make it super, super fast. They're consuming information super fast. And if they have to work for anything, they're on to the next ad, the next website, the next thread. So make it really, really easy and shift things around so it's top of mind, top of page.
Yeah, that's really great advice. We've done a lot of work in kind of landing page conversion, and it's amazing some of the things that you can do on a landing page to make it work just a little bit better. And if you think about moving 100 clicks if you improve, let's say you have 100 people that actually take action on your landing page and you had 1,000 people come in, so you have a 10% conversion rate. If you can just move that a couple of points, it can really add up.
Exactly. The other thing, while we're on this landing page content issue, is that a lot of times people tend to be really verbose, and there's reasons for that. They want to get good content that Google recognizes, that's authoritative, that's informative. But when you're talking about a landing page, again, your user is absorbing content really, really fast. So if you can organize it in such a way that's more bullet point or smaller chunks to consume quickly, that helps, I think, the user find out about you and who you are and what you're offering more quickly than if you require them to do a lot of reading and actually use their time and energy to look into what you offer. That being less verbose can be helpful.
Yeah, I would argue that a landing page is really not designed to be something that Google ranks anyway. That's what the rest of your site is for. Your landing page is there to convert very specifically. So
you need enough content to be able to get that quality score up so that it matches your theme and your keyword and your headlines, but you don't need so much because we're not trying to get it up on SEO. I mean, this is your AdWords landing page. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, that's probably a mistake that some people make.
Yeah.
It's like, you got the sale. Don't screw it up by continuing to talk.
I've seen some pages with just so much content. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to work.
No, no, not at all. So in the nonprofit space, I imagine you've done quite a bit of work with Google's grants program. What can you tell people about navigating that quagmire of stuff?
Yeah. The Google grant is really exciting up front. I mean, to be able to get $10,000 of free Google ad spend a month is really, really appealing. And the message is it's hard to spend that money, right? Google doesn't actually make it very easy for nonprofits to spend the full $10,000. So unless you have somebody who's a marketing expert in-house who has a lot of time and energy to constantly be on top of that, you just need to outsource it and have somebody help you with it. What's required is really constant attention. Google doesn't let you bid more than $2. If you're bidding using like their manual cost per click, you can't bid over $2. So it becomes very difficult to be relevant and to get that good quality score and a good click-through rate because you're only bidding $2. And if your competitors are bidding 6, 7, 8, you're never up there, and you're just not getting the traffic. So they actually encourage you and have a lot of information out there about how to incorporate conversion tracking to be an essential part of your Google grant campaign. So I don't even think you can have a successful grant campaign unless your conversion tracking is really rock solid, because then you can bypass some of the manual CPC bidding that a lot of people start out with. And if your conversions come in rather quickly and rather robustly, then you can use the Google automated buying strategies like max conversion or return on ad spend or target CPA. Those then bypass your cost per click requirements. So there's just all these hoops that you kind of have to jump through. You can't bid on any single keyword. So if you were a school and you wanted to bid on education, you just can't bid on just one keyword. It has to be education services near me.
Okay. So it has to be longer tail.
Yeah. So you have to be mindful as you load all that. And then as you're placing your bids and creating your ads, it has to just be very meaningful. And then the third point is your click-through rate. They require it to be 5% or higher.
Oh, wow.
Which is actually pretty hard. I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, I would say the junior or novice AdWords person might not be able to do that out of the gate. You need to massage it. You need to look at what works, what doesn't, and constantly weed out things that have low click-through rates in order to meet that 5%. You have 30 days to repair it if it goes under 5%, but if you don't repair it in 30 days, they pause it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's great though. It's a really good use of this grant if you can get your ads out there and stay within their boundaries. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. What do you recommend people do when signing up for that? Just kind of go for it and hope for the best, or what are the steps that people should take?
Yeah, if they're setting it up themselves, I mean, it's just really important to create really great ad content and to have that be matching your keywords and to be sure you have a landing page that's connected. So you're not going to spend, they really limit you. I think the average would be $330 a day or something, depending on how many days in the month. You never go over that, right? Google kind of cuts you off at this daily spend. So if you can get out of the gate, get a few campaigns live, see what your click-through rate is, you see if the conversions are coming in and switch to that, at least the maximized conversion buy strategy, you might be able to get $25, $30, $40 a day. And the other thing, to have patience. So if you're doing it in-house and not outsourcing it to someone, have patience. A lot of times we will see the campaigns evolve and grow and mature over time. And sometimes it takes 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
But I do have clients that are spending $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 of that grant, but it's taken 3 to 6 months to get there of just, constant care and attention to all of those points.
Are there ways to get out of it sounds like you might be, I wouldn't say penalized, but you certainly get paused. Are there ways to get out of that kind of Google grant jail once you're in it?
Google's been really great to work with. I have found that in all cases, the team has been really responsive. So if you do get a notice that you've gone under the click-through rate, or you have a creative out there that is not perfect, or you have that single keyword, they give you notice. They give you time to fix it. Usually if it's one of the criteria that you're violating, you have 30 days. Like if it's under 5%, for a 30-day period, then you go into Google territory of jail time. But you're still live. You just have to fix it in the next 30 days. But if they did pause it and you actually weren't spending money, you can work with them to get it fixed. They've been able to work with me on various situations like that. So,
oh, cool. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
I certainly have recommended Google Grants to a variety of different people just because it is out there, and it certainly is a generous offer for those who are looking to at least start trying, dipping their toes in the Google Ads arena. But yeah, there's always pitfalls and loopholes and little things you have to be aware of.
The biggest thing that I think I can tell the audience today is that there's a huge difference, and you have to create a different expectation for the grant account versus what you would do for a paid account. I would never encourage any nonprofit to rely solely on the grant account.
Okay.
The reason why is that paid is always going to get priority from Google And like I said, it takes so long to get your traffic up to that higher spend. It's more like an SEO long play for people. And then when I'm looking at conversion data and I'm looking at return on ad spend and how effective my ads are, the ad grant always trails the paid account by 2, 3, or 4 to 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's significantly worse when it comes to actual performance. Like if you have a cost per lead on the paid account for $10, I'm not surprised when I have $100 on the grant account. The traffic is just not as high quality.
Okay.
But you can get there with that constant time and attention and work, as long as your click-through rate is really strong and the quality score is strong and you really prove yourself over time, you can get that to improve. But even in its best scenario, the paid account generally does better.
Okay. That is really, really great information that I'm sure most people don't know.
Yeah, I really encourage people to do both, to put some of your marketing budget to the paid account. And then if you're going to outsource the management of the grant account, you just put that budget aside for that and you do them both together.
Yeah, that's not a bad plan, because once you've built the grants one out, for example, you could probably just throw money at a similar campaign, right?
Yep. And really, the paid account also informs the grant account, because you will get access to inventory and you'll get really immediate results on things that take forever on the grant account. And you can say, oh, wow, this is working over here. And you put it in the grant account, and then they just help each other.
Oh, that's a really interesting tactic. I like that idea of just throwing a couple $100 at a paid campaign and then leveraging the data that you get from that to inform your larger grants. I'll use the word spend here incorrectly, I guess, but
it's super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Do you run paid social as well, or are you exclusively in the Google realm?
We do all three. So kind of the trifecta of social, search, and display.
Okay.
And I find that every client performs better in one area or the other.
Yeah.
And usually nonprofits and specifically, I haven't worked with a lot that have, unlimited budgets, right? So you really want to focus the budget, the precious money that you do have, on the platform that's going to work the best for you. So we'll try to launch in the best area. And oftentimes that is social. Mm-hmm. One of the strategies that we already talked about, which is the lookalike. If you have a list of users and you're just trying to get more people to know about you that are like your current users, Facebook lookalike is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a great way to conserve budget, because if you're in a metropolitan area like Chicago, it's just a huge area. How can you conserve your budget and hit the people that you most likely want to hit? That lookalike strategy is great. And putting that into social is just a great way to get that response, where the search just might not give you the amount of volume because people might not be looking for you when you want to respond to them. So yeah, we do all three: search, display, social. And then as things work and you get more donors and you have bigger budgets, then working all three together at various percentages is really my personal expertise.
Yeah, that's really great information. Do you find that you have to have that list of 1,000 to do a Facebook lookalike, or is it lower? It seems like I heard 300 was sort of the starting target for that, but I can't remember.
I know that the retargeting specifically is 1,000. We have a couple campaigns that are under that right now that really aren't serving. I can't remember in my recent memory if a lookalike was able. Maybe you don't need 1,000 because the lookalike audience, if you had 300 or 500, might be bigger than the 1,000 of a retargeting. So it's probably worth a try. I don't have anybody with that small of a list. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious, just for some of the smaller nonprofits out there who that sounds like something that would work for them, which completely makes sense to me, where the break even is there. So I guess keep putting efforts toward building your list of donors, right?
Yep, exactly.
I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and one of the things that came out of the pandemic last year was their numbers for donations were actually, I want to say they were up a little bit or flat, but the number of people donating was way up. And so that, if you have a nonprofit that experienced that, where even if your donations were down, really looking at that list as a very viable opportunity for you. An asset really is certainly worthwhile. And not only just from pure email marketing opportunities, but a campaign like this, like what Kurt's talking about here, sounds like it would be a really, really valuable opportunity for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you're talking about the donations during the pandemic. It is really surprising. So many of my nonprofit clients really did not experience a huge dip. I know people were concerned.
Mm-hmm.
They were worried about what was going to happen, even with the economy. And yeah, most of them stayed flat or did better. And it was kind of like this surprise, wow, we're staying at it and people are still engaged and helping us out and we can keep our ministries going. So it's been really cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's really interesting about that is that most nonprofits had to pull back on events last year. And so their costs went down.
There you go.
So there's another slight, maybe hopefully bonus for people, even though events are kind of that.
But people showed up online. People showed up online. When they did the online events, at least for a lot of people that I worked with, there was a good response. And yeah, a lot of people were surprised, but grateful.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting times out there. I know people are still scared and struggling and trying to figure things out and worried about what's going to happen. But there's certainly just so much opportunity. And whether that's through traditional marketing or email marketing or hitting up a search engine marketing campaign, there are things to try and to just keep iterating and keep that juice flowing, right?
Yep. I think more and more digital is the path in the future because people are spending more time online than they ever were before. So
yeah, good, for good or bad, that seems to be the place that we're in at this point. Well, Kurt, I can't believe it's been almost an hour since we started talking. This has just been amazing. I've learned a lot. I'm so happy that I was able to have you join me on the show today because I think that this is going to be really beneficial for a lot of people and just kind of pull back a little bit of the mystery of paid search and all of the great things that you do for pay-per-click.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really great to be here and to chat with you. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's my passion. I love the data. I love the immediacy of the results that you can see and just being able to act on that. It just, keeps me going. I love it.
Well, thank you so much. How can people find out more about you and your organization and maybe see if you can help them out?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is FillaLifeMedia.com. And I have a few sections on social, search, display advertising. There's even a section on donor targeting for nonprofits and how to, tag your donors and retarget them or do lookalikes. So there's information there. But yeah, you can reach me there. All my contact information at FillaLifeMedia.com.
And so that's FillaLife media.com.
You got it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. My audience knows that I do this every show, but I really, really do love having these conversations and kind of pulling back the secret sauce or looking into that recipe of how people can do better in their marketing to do more good in the world. But I also really want people to take action. And I ask my guests at the end of every show, if there was anything that you wanted people to do, what action you'd like for them to take after listening to our show today, what would you have them do?
So if you're currently doing a marketing campaign, either internally or with a partner, go and look at your reporting. And are you getting robust reporting that includes not only impressions, clicks, and click-through rate, but conversions and cost per conversion? So make sure that all of that reporting is intact and robust so that you're able to leverage that month over month. That would be my takeaway, is just make sure that's all intact. And then, be conservative if you're just starting out. Test the waters and see what kind of response you get, and then grow as your campaigns improve.
Love it. I think that is just sound advice for any campaign. Thank you again, Kurt, so much for being on the show today. I had a really good time talking with you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye. And there you have it, another great episode of Relish This. Thanks again for listening. You can find past episodes of the show at relishthis.org. And remember, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information on purpose marketing, grab your free copy of my book, Mission Uncomfortable: How Nonprofits Can Embrace Purpose-Driven Marketing to Survive and Thrive. Get your copy now at Mission